Lieutenant Colonel Maya Rodriguez had spent 15 years serving her country with distinction, but nothing could have prepared her for the corporate battlefield she entered after transitioning to civilian life. The sleek Manhattan office of Blackstone Defense Solutions buzzed with the energy of ambitious professionals. Yet Maya felt the familiar weight of scrutiny that had followed her throughout her military career. Maya had been hired as the new director of strategic operations, a position that commanded respect and came with a corner office overlooking the Hudson River. Her resume spoke volumes. Decorated combat veteran, West Point graduate, and recipient of the Bronze Star with Valor. She had led troops through some of the most challenging missions in Afghanistan and Iraq, yet her new colleagues seemed determined to reduce her accomplishments to nothing more than a checkbox on a diversity initiative. The whispers started on her first day. She caught fragments of conversations that stopped abruptly when she entered the break room. "Affirmative action hire," she heard someone mutter behind her back. They needed a woman to fill the quota. Another voice added with barely concealed disdain. Maya had faced discrimination before, but the corporate world presented a different kind of battlefield where the weapons were passive-aggressive comments and deliberate exclusion rather than bullets and bombs. Her immediate supervisor, Marcus Wellington, embodied everything Maya had learned to recognize as institutional bias, wrapped in a tailored suit. Wellington had inherited his position through family connections rather than merit, yet he seemed to believe that his Ivy League education and old money background made him inherently superior to anyone who had pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, as he condescendingly put it. During her first team meeting, Wellington made a point of questioning every suggestion Maya offered, despite her extensive experience in defense contracting and strategic planning. When she proposed a more efficient supply chain management system based on military logistics principles, he dismissed it with a wave of his hand. "That might work in the military, but this is the real world," he said, drawing chuckles from his cronies around the conference table. The pattern continued for weeks. Wellington would assign Maya menial tasks that were far below her pay grade, then criticize her for not focusing on big-picture thinking. He scheduled important meetings without inviting her, then questioned why she wasn't more involved in key decisions. The psychological warfare was subtle but effective, designed to make her doubt her own abilities and eventually resign in frustration. Maya's colleagues, primarily white men from privileged backgrounds, seemed to enjoy the spectacle of watching her struggle against the system. They would make comments about lowering standards and political correctness gone wrong, just loud enough for her to hear. During lunch meetings, they would discuss their weekend golf games and exclusive club memberships, making it clear that she would never be part of their inner circle. The isolation was perhaps the most challenging aspect of her new role. Maya had spent her entire adult life as part of a military family where merit mattered more than background, where the person next to you in the foxhole was judged by their courage and competence rather than their skin color or gender. Now, she found herself in an environment where her achievements were constantly questioned and her expertise dismissed. Wellington's harassment escalated when Maya successfully landed a major contract with the Department of Defense, leveraging her military contacts and expertise. Instead of celebrating the victory, he called her into his office and suggested that she had used inappropriate relationships to secure the deal. The implication was clear and infuriating. A woman of color couldn't possibly succeed on merit alone. Maya knew she had to document everything. She started keeping detailed records of every interaction, every slight, every instance of discriminatory behavior. Her military training had taught her the importance of intelligence gathering and strategic planning. She understood that this was a war, and she intended to win it. The breaking point came during a client presentation where Wellington deliberately undermined her in front of potential customers. He interrupted her presentation multiple times, questioned her data, and even made jokes about military precision that drew uncomfortable laughter from the room. Maya maintained her composure, but inside, she was planning her counterattack. That evening, Maya sat in her apartment, staring at her Bronze Star and other military commendations displayed on her wall. She had earned those medals through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. She had led men and women into battle and brought them home safely. She had served her country with honor and distinction. She would not let corporate bullies diminish her achievements or drive her from a job she had rightfully earned. Maya began reaching out to her network of military contacts, not to seek favors, but to ensure that the truth about her character and capabilities would be known. She also started building alliances within the company, identifying other employees who had witnessed Wellington's discriminatory behavior and were willing to speak up. The next morning, Maya walked into the office with renewed determination. She had faced down enemy combatants in foreign wars. She could certainly handle a privileged bully in a corner office. She had no idea that her moment of vindication was about to arrive in the most spectacular way possible. Wellington called an emergency meeting that afternoon, gathering the entire senior staff in the main conference room. He had been bragging for weeks about landing a mysterious VIP client who was coming to evaluate their services. Maya suspected this was another setup, another opportunity for Wellington to showcase his supposed superiority while diminishing her contributions. The conference room filled with nervous energy as employees straightened their ties and reviewed their presentations. Wellington strutted around the room like a peacock, making sure everyone understood that this meeting could make or break their careers. He made a point of seating Maya at the far end of the table, away from the main presentation area. "Ladies and gentlemen," Wellington began with his usual pompous demeanor. Today we have the privilege of meeting with one of the most important clients in our company's history. This individual has the power to secure contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I want everyone on their best behavior. Maya watched as her colleagues adjusted their posture and put on their most professional faces. She remained calm and composed, her military bearing evident even in the toxic corporate environment. Whatever Wellington had planned, she was ready for it. The door opened, and everyone turned to see who would enter. Maya's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the figure walking through the doorway. It was General Patricia Hammond, a four-star general whom Maya had served under during her deployment in Afghanistan. General Hammond was a legend in military circles, known for her tactical brilliance and unwavering integrity. Wellington rushed forward to greet the general, his voice dripping with false enthusiasm. "General Hammond, welcome to Blackstone Defense Solutions. I'm Marcus Wellington, and I'll be your primary contact for this evaluation." He extended his hand with the confidence of someone who believed his title and family connections would automatically earn him respect. General Hammond's eyes swept the room, taking in the assembled staff with the practiced assessment of a career military officer. Her gaze lingered on Maya, and a small smile played at the corners of her mouth. Maya felt her chest tighten with emotion as she recognized the look of a fellow warrior who had faced similar challenges and emerged victorious. "Mr. Wellington," General Hammond said in her characteristic no-nonsense tone, "before we begin, I need to address something important." The room fell silent as everyone sensed the gravity in her voice. Wellington's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Of course, General. Whatever you need," Wellington replied, clearly trying to maintain control of the situation. General Hammond turned to face Maya directly, her expression serious and formal. "Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez, would you please stand?" Maya's heart pounded as she rose from her chair, her military bearing automatically asserting itself. The room erupted in confused murmurs as colleagues realized that Maya and the general knew each other. Wellington's face went pale as he began to understand that his carefully orchestrated meeting was about to take an unexpected turn. "I'm sorry, General, but I think there might be some confusion. This is Maya Rodriguez, one of our junior staff members. She's not really involved in strategic decisions." General Hammond's eyes flashed with an intensity that Maya remembered from their time in combat zones. "Mr. Wellington, I'm going to stop you right there. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez is one of the finest officers I've ever had the privilege to serve with. She saved my life and the lives of countless others during Operation Enduring Freedom. Her strategic thinking and leadership capabilities are beyond question." The room was dead silent as the implications of General Hammond's words sank in. Maya felt vindicated, but also emotional, as memories of their shared experiences flooded back. She remembered the day she had led a rescue mission to extract General Hammond's convoy after they were ambushed by insurgents. It had been one of the most dangerous operations of her career, but she had succeeded in bringing everyone home safely. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez, General Hammond continued, her voice carrying the weight of military protocol. I want to personally thank you for your service and your sacrifice. Your actions in Afghanistan went above and beyond the call of duty, and I'm honored to see you succeeding in the civilian sector. Maya snapped to attention, her military training taking over. Thank you, General. It was an honor to serve under your command. The exchange was brief but powerful, carrying years of shared experience and mutual respect. Wellington stood frozen, his mouth agape as he realized that his diversity hire was actually a decorated war hero with a direct connection to one of the most powerful people in the defense establishment. The other employees in the room began to shift uncomfortably, suddenly aware of how they had treated Maya over the past few months. General Hammond turned back to Wellington, her expression now stern and businesslike. Mr. Wellington, I came here today to evaluate your company's capabilities and leadership structure. I have to say, I'm concerned about what I'm seeing. A company that doesn't recognize and properly utilize the talents of someone like Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez is a company that doesn't understand the value of true leadership. Wellington stammered, trying to recover from his shock. General, I assure you that I mean Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez, is a valued member of our team. We've always recognized her contributions. His words rang hollow in the silent room, and Maya could see the panic in his eyes. Is that so? General Hammond asked, her tone suggesting she already knew the answer. Because from what I've observed in just the few minutes I've been here, it seems like you've relegated one of the most qualified people in this room to a position of minimal influence. Maya watched as Wellington's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. His hands shook slightly as he realized that his treatment of Maya could cost him the biggest contract in the company's history. The other employees in the room were beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. General Hammond continued her assessment, her military bearing commanding absolute attention. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez, I'd like to hear your thoughts on defense contracting and strategic partnerships. I'm particularly interested in your insights on supply chain management and operational efficiency. Maya felt a surge of confidence as she recognized the opportunity to showcase her expertise. She had spent months being dismissed and undermined, but now she had the chance to demonstrate her true capabilities. She began outlining her strategic vision for defense contracting, drawing on her military experience and her understanding of both government and corporate needs. As Maya spoke, the room transformed. Her colleagues, who had spent months treating her with condescension and dismissal, now hung on her every word. They were beginning to understand that they had been in the presence of greatness all along, but their prejudices had blinded them to the truth. Wellington watched helplessly as Maya commanded the room with the same authority she had once used to lead troops into battle. Every point she made was precise. Every recommendation was backed by real-world experience, and every solution she proposed demonstrated the kind of strategic thinking that could revolutionize their approach to defense contracting. General Hammond nodded approvingly as Maya concluded her presentation. "Outstanding, Lieutenant Colonel. Your analysis is exactly what I was hoping to hear. This is the kind of strategic thinking that wins wars and builds successful businesses." She turned to address the entire room. "I want everyone here to understand something important. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez isn't just a decorated war hero. She's one of the most brilliant strategic minds I've ever encountered. Any organization that fails to recognize and nurture that talent is making a critical error." The weight of General Hammond's words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Maya could see the realization dawning on her colleagues' faces as they understood the magnitude of their mistake. They had spent months dismissing and undermining someone who was not only more qualified than they were, but who also had the respect and admiration of one of the most powerful people in the defense establishment. Wellington made a desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "General Hammond, I want to assure you that we fully appreciate Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez's contributions to our team. In fact, we've been considering promoting her to a more senior position." His words were transparent and pathetic, but Maya could see the fear in his eyes. General Hammond's expression remained stern and unforgiving. "Mr. Wellington, I've spent my entire career learning to read people and situations. What I see here is a fundamental failure of leadership and judgment. A company that treats a decorated war hero as a diversity hire is a company that doesn't understand the meaning of merit or excellence." Maya felt a mixture of vindication and sadness as she watched her colleagues squirm under General Hammond's scrutiny. She had tried to earn their respect through hard work and competence, but it had taken the intervention of a four-star general to make them see the truth. "Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez," General Hammond said, turning back to Maya, "I have a proposition for you. I'm aware that your talents may not be fully appreciated in your current position. I'd like to discuss an opportunity that would allow you to make a real difference in defense strategy and policy." Maya's heart raced as she considered the implications of General Hammond's offer. She looked around the room at her colleagues, who were now staring at her with a mixture of respect and fear. Wellington looked like he was about to be sick. finally understanding that his prejudice and arrogance had cost him not only a major contract, but also his most valuable employee. I would be honored to discuss any opportunity you might have in mind, General, Maya replied, her voice steady and professional. She could feel the power dynamic in the room shifting dramatically, and she knew that this moment would define the rest of her career. General Hammond smiled, the first genuine warmth she had shown since entering the room. Excellent. I think you'll find that there are organizations that truly value merit and excellence, organizations where your background and experience will be seen as assets rather than obstacles. Wellington made one last desperate attempt to maintain control. General, I hope you'll give us a chance to demonstrate our capabilities. I'm sure we can work out any misunderstandings and move forward with a productive partnership. General Hammond's response was swift and decisive. Mr. Wellington, I've seen everything I need to see. An organization's true character is revealed in how it treats its most valuable people. Blackstone Defense Solutions has failed that test spectacularly. She paused, letting her words sink in. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez, would you be available for a private conversation? I have some opportunities I'd like to discuss with you. Maya nodded, feeling a sense of liberation she hadn't experienced since leaving the military. Absolutely, General. I'm at your disposal. She gathered her materials and prepared to leave the conference room, knowing that her life was about to change dramatically. As Maya walked toward the door with General Hammond, she could feel the eyes of her colleagues following her. Some looked ashamed, others appeared angry, and a few seemed to be calculating how they could repair their relationship with someone they now realized was far more influential than they had ever imagined. Wellington called out desperately, "Maya, I hope you'll remember that we're all part of the same team here. I'm sure we can work through any issues and continue to build a successful partnership." Maya turned back to face him, her expression calm but firm. "Mr. Wellington, I've spent the last 6 months documenting every instance of discrimination, harassment, and professional sabotage I've experienced at this company. I've detailed every meeting you've excluded me from, every idea you've dismissed without consideration, and every attempt you've made to undermine my credibility and authority." The room fell silent as Maya's words hit home. Wellington's face went white as he realized the legal implications of her statement. The other employees began to understand that they might also be held accountable for their treatment of Maya. "I've also documented the witnesses to these incidents," Maya continued, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded troops in combat. "I have a detailed record of how this company treats its employees, particularly those who don't fit the traditional mold of privilege and connections." General Hammond watched the exchange with interest, clearly impressed by Maya's composure and strategic thinking. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez, it sounds like you've been conducting a thorough after-action review. That's exactly the kind of analytical approach we need in the positions I have available. Maya felt a surge of pride as she realized that her military training had prepared her for this moment. She had approached the hostile work environment like a military campaign, gathering intelligence, identifying allies, and preparing for the decisive battle. Now, with General Hammond's support, she had achieved total victory. General, I've learned that preparation and documentation are essential in any challenging environment, Maya replied. Whether it's a combat zone or a corporate boardroom, the principles remain the same. Know your enemy, understand the terrain, and never underestimate the power of truth and integrity. Wellington made one final, desperate plea. Maya, please, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We value your contributions, and I'm sure we can work together to create a more positive environment for everyone. Maya looked at him with the same steady gaze she had once used to assess enemy positions. Mr. Wellington, there's no misunderstanding. You made your position clear from the day I arrived. You questioned my qualifications, undermined my authority, and made it clear that you viewed me as nothing more than a token hire. The only thing that's changed is that you now understand the consequences of your actions. General Hammond stepped forward, her presence commanding absolute attention. Mr. Wellington, let me be clear about something. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez is not just a decorated war hero. She's someone who has earned my personal respect and admiration. Any organization that fails to recognize her value is an organization that doesn't deserve to work with the Department of Defense. The implications of General Hammond's statement were clear to everyone in the room. Maya's treatment at Blackstone Defense Solutions had not only cost them a major contract, but had also damaged their reputation with one of the most influential people in the defense establishment. Maya felt a sense of closure as she prepared to leave the conference room. She had endured months of discrimination and harassment, but she had never allowed it to break her spirit or compromise her integrity. Now, with General Hammond's support, she was positioned to move forward to opportunities that would truly value her skills and experience. General Hammond, I'm ready to discuss those opportunities whenever you are, Maya said, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had faced down enemy fire and emerged victorious. I believe my experience in both military and corporate environments has prepared me for whatever challenges lie ahead. As Maya and General Hammond left the conference room, the silence behind them was deafening. The employees of Blackstone Defense Solutions were left to contemplate the magnitude of their mistake and the consequences of their prejudice. They had dismissed a war hero, undermined a strategic genius, and lost the respect of one of the most powerful people in the defense establishment. Wellington slumped in his chair, finally understanding that his arrogance and prejudice had destroyed not only his career, but also the company's future. The other employees began to file out of the room, their earlier confidence replaced by shame and fear. Maya walked through the office corridors with General Hammond, passing the same colleagues who had spent months treating her with condescension and dismissal. Now they avoided eye contact, suddenly aware that they had been in the presence of greatness all along. As they reached the elevator, General Hammond turned to Maya with a smile. "Lieutenant Colonel, I have to say that I'm impressed by how you handled that situation. You maintained your composure, documented everything, and waited for the right moment to reveal your strength. That's the mark of a true leader." Maya felt a weight lifting from her shoulders as she realized that her ordeal was finally over. "Thank you, General. The military taught me that patience and preparation are often more powerful than immediate retaliation. I knew that the truth would eventually come to light." The elevator doors opened, and as they stepped inside, Maya took one last look at the office that had been her battlefield for the past 6 months. She had entered as a hopeful new employee, eager to apply her military experience to the corporate world. She was leaving as a vindicated warrior, ready to take on new challenges with the support of someone who truly understood her value. General Hammond's final words as they left the building would stay with Maya forever. "Lieutenant Colonel, never forget that your worth is not determined by the opinions of those who lack the vision to see your true value. You've proven that excellence will always rise above prejudice, and that the truth will always prevail." Maya walked out of Blackstone Defense Solutions for the last time, knowing that her real career was just beginning. She had faced down corporate bullies just as she had faced down enemy combatants, and she had emerged victorious. The little girl who had once dreamed of serving her country had become a decorated war hero, and the war hero had become a force for change in the corporate world. 3 months later, Maya would be appointed to a senior position in the Pentagon, working directly with General Hammond on strategic defense initiatives. Her former colleagues at Blackstone Defense Solutions would read about her appointment in the defense trade publications, finally understanding the magnitude of the talent they had dismissed. Wellington would be quietly forced to resign after an internal investigation revealed a pattern of discriminatory behavior. The company would implement new diversity and inclusion policies, but the damage to their reputation had already been done. They would struggle to secure new contracts, particularly with government agencies that had learned about their treatment of a decorated war hero. Maya's story would become legend in military circles, a reminder that excellence and integrity will always triumph over prejudice and ignorance. She had proven that a diversity hire could be the most qualified person in the room, and that sometimes it takes a four-star general to make people see the truth that was right in front of them all along. Years later, when Maya would speak to young women and minorities entering the corporate world, she would always emphasize the importance of documenting everything, building alliances, and never allowing others to define your worth. She would tell them that the battle for respect and recognition is often long and difficult, but that victory is always possible for those who refuse to give up. The conference room at Blackstone Defense Solutions would be renamed in honor of Maya Rodriguez, a small gesture that could never undo the damage that had been done. But Maya didn't need their recognition anymore. She had found her place in an organization that truly valued merit and excellence, and she was making a difference on a scale that her former colleagues could never have imagined. The diversity hire had become the strategic mastermind. The dismissed employee had become the Pentagon advisor, and the woman they had underestimated had become their greatest lesson in the power of perseverance and the ultimate triumph of truth over prejudice.